Yeah, we can. That's not a problem.
Good job, Shivam. Put it on loud.
It's better to happen now. Okay, now you're good to go.
Okay. Very good evening, everybody in India. A very happy National Sports Day. Of course, today being the National Sports Day in India. And thank you very much, Coach David Jones, Miley Jones, and Shivam. Of course, I think I talk to you more often than I talk to my wife. So good morning to you as well.
Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, Vinod, and welcome everyone, and happy National Sports Day to everybody in India, and good evening, and welcome to the Strength and Conditioning webinar. We're coming to you live from the Shooting for Success gym here in San Antonio, Texas, and I got with me the shot doctor, Coach DJ, and his daughter, Miley, who can be leading the strength and conditioning drills. This is a great opportunity to be able to see how they work with their players and to improve their strength and conditioning. So just let me do a quick introduction. Coach DJ, I've known for a very long time. He was my basketball coach growing up. He spent 13 years playing professionally overseas in Europe and is the founder and president of the Shooting for Success Basketball Academy here in San Antonio, Texas. And Coach DJ trains with players at the grassroots, college, and professional levels, both, as you know, in shooting and also strength and conditioning. And his daughter, Miley, currently plays for the Vietnam national team, and she has played AAU, high school, and Division I college basketball. And she's been using her time not only to improve her game, but also to train younger kids. So welcome to the program, Coach DJ and Miley.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
All right.
Well, we can be more excited to basically start the session. And I would just like to give the audience a little bit of a brief before we start. First of all, thank you very much, everyone, for joining in to this webinar on the Zoom platform, as well as all you people watching on the different platforms on Facebook and YouTube. We're going to be starting with some strength and conditioning drills, and which will be conducted by Coach David Jones and Miley Jones. And of course, you'll be able to ask some questions as well. And of course, it'll be followed by a session on injury prevention and rehabilitation by Dr. Paul Saenz, who is the team physician for the San Antonio Spurs. So we can have a better, credible people to show us what you can do in terms of improving your strength and conditioning, and of course, preventing yourself from getting injured while playing the game of basketball or any other sport that you're playing. So, and if you do have any questions, I do request everybody to please, type in your questions in the Q&A section of this Zoom platform. So if you, and we'll be more than happy to get it answered by either Coach DJ or Miley or Dr. Paul Saenz. So once again, thank you very much. So let's get the ball rolling. Coach David, Miley.
We're ready.
Yeah. All right.
We're ready.
All right.
Wow, okay. So great. So once again, thank you very much. And so let's get the ball rolling. So Coach David, the floor is all yours. The gym is yours. So it's totally up to you to wow the audience right now.
Oh, that's great. That's great. Okay, Shivam, what do you want me to start off with now?
All right, Coach, so start off with, let's start with drill number 1, which is going to be warm up. So this is very important because this is during this time, players may not have had the opportunity, to work out as much, or maybe they're working out at home. So it's important before you start your strength and conditioning, it's important to really warm up and get your body started. So Coach, ready for some warm up drills?
Yeah, we'll start Miley off with the jump rope.
All right.
And Miley, if you can just stand at the free throw line area. So a good way to warm up your body, and is really good using a jump rope. It's a full body workout. You're working your arms, you're working your leg, and really getting your heart rate up and get the blood flowing through your body. So it's a really good way to warm up. I have Miley do this every day, and she's actually pretty good with the jump rope. And I'd say for about, I'm between 5 and 15 minutes. Just jump rope, real nice and easy. Some of you beginners using the jump rope, and so we'll just use beginning jumping just off 2 feet. You know, and that's really easy. You can switch to just one leg. Switch to the other leg. Very good. Now both feet. Good. And just same time, nice and easy. And then if you just want to alternate your footwork, just one by one. Yeah, you can also do that. And now for you more advanced players that are really good, you can really, you know, mix up the footwork, and you can go pretty quick if you want to. It's all up to you. But the most important thing is just working your body for a good warm up. So it's really, the better warm up you get, the more chance you have to prevent injuries with whatever sport you choose to play. Okay, very good. Very good. All right, what do we have next, Shivam?
All right, so now moving on. So thank you, Miley. That was some pretty great jump roping. So now moving on, let's start with speed, quickness, and agility, which is very important not only for basketball but all sports. And these drills are very important to do as much as possible to be able to improve on your speed and quickness. So, Coach, take it away.
So good. We have our guests today. We have Giuseppe Sessi. Good.
Hello.
Yeah, we have Napat Taputako. We have Keshav Vijay Kumar. I'm gonna say hi. Here we go. And then last we have Dakshan Denali. Okay, good. And we'll go through some easy footwork ladder drills. And so everyone line up behind Giuseppe. And then 1 foot in each space. Some of you that have, go ahead, go. Some of you have a ladder at home. This will be really good. Good, same thing coming back. Good. And I'll show some of you beginners, if you don't have a ladder at home, some other ways that you can work. Okay, 2 feet in each spot. And it's a lot more fun when you work as a group. Just makes it a lot more fun when you do it that way. Let's go right foot only, okay? And you don't have to go that fast unless you want to. We'll go right foot only. So it's just hopping, really working the joints and the tendons and making sure your body stays healthy. Go ahead. Same thing coming back. Now go left foot. Very good. And you can see these guys here, they range from sophomores, juniors in high school, all the way down to 6th graders. And so this is the difference in the level that we work with here. Okay, Inky Shuffle. Very good. But now, coming back, I want you to go even faster for the advanced players. As fast as you can. Use your arm. Good. And this is really working on your quickness and agility moves here. Okay. Good. Okay. Thank you, guys.
All right, very great drills. So, Coach is wondering, so when you train the kids, you're training with shooting, and then also strength and like quickness. So, how often do you have the kids do these ladder drills?
These are every day.
Okay.
These are every day. And so, real quickly, I want to have the guys come back, but real quickly, we want to show for the people that don't have a ladder at home. And so, just use the white volleyball line. Okay. Go towards your right. Lead off with your right foot. And so you can draw a line at home. You can use a line that you see in your driveway or in your backyard or whatever, and you can still work on these movements. Same thing coming back. You can still work on these same moves without a ladder. You don't necessarily need a ladder. Ladder is just, it gives you extra. It's just extra. That's all it is.
Coach David,
yes.
What about like really young players, like who are like maybe 7 years old or 8 years old? How, I mean, is this difficult for them to kind of get this drill, or even they will be able to kind of do it?
That's a very good question. And, you know, here we start from the grassroots, you know, and we like to work kids that are interested in basketball. And so we have Spencer Anderson. Can you come out, please? And Spencer, I want you to stand right here in between Shivam and myself. How old are you? 8, no 9. Okay. Okay, well, you just turned 9. Okay, and so I want you guys to go through the ladder again, and I want you to use Spencer. And so Spencer, I want you to follow them. And so now we can show our viewers, you know, at any level, you know, you can still work from high school all the way down to 9-year-olds. Very good. Same thing coming back. Like I said, the drills, they don't have to be difficult. They just have to have drills where they can start to, you know, work on their foot speed. Right foot only. And as you can see, Spencer is 9 years old and he can keep up with, you know, everyone. But like I said, these are the easy drills. Same thing coming back. And we'll do a good one here. We'll go 2 feet in, 2 feet out, 2 feet in, 2 feet out. Okay, go ahead. And you're gonna go at the same time. Good, Doc Shan. Good, Spencer. Good, Doc Shan. Good, Spencer. There we go.
And coach, how often do these kids, I mean, do these kind of drills? Do they have to do it every day, or do you?
Yes, we do these every day because especially when you're working with the grassroots, it helps them with their mobility, it helps them with their coordination, and really strengthening their joints and their tendons at a really young age, which is important for basketball, for any sport that you choose to play.
And coach, how many times do you have them go back and forth usually on the ladder?
On the ladder, we work for about 15 minutes, 15 minutes a day. So we'll do the jump rope 5 to 15 minutes. We'll do the ladder for about 15 minutes a day. And it really helps. Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Awesome. Well, thank you, coach. So now moving on.
Sorry, just one audience who asked the question, like, how often do they practice? So I hope that answered his question. So the more you do it, the better it is, of course, because, I mean, if you want your child, or if you want to improve yourself, the more you do it, the better it is.
Absolutely. And what we have with our club teams here, especially with Spencer, with this young age, we don't want to, you know, overwhelm him every day with, you know, basketball. So his club team practice twice a week, but we do give them things to work on at home in their own time. And that way they're not spending most of their time with us because, you know, education is important for us. And that's the main goal, that they keep their education at a high level, and then twice a week come get some fun training time with us.
Sure.
It's a great balance.
Yeah.
So I would just like to once again remind the audience that some of you have raised your hand probably to ask a question. So we will be having a separate Q&A time so that you can direct your questions to either Coach David or Dr. Paul Saenz, who's going to join us later. So just have some patience. We just want to have some demonstrations first, and then probably we can have a full session for the questions. So thank you very much, everybody. Sorry, Coach David, you can continue now.
No problem. No problem. And next we're going to start with, we'll do another quick speed drill. We'll make and I love doing this, 10 shots in a minute. And we'll go mid-range shots. Giuseppe and Pat, can you move the ladder to the white line, please? And we'll have Miley, and Miley, move the sign, please. We'll have my lead do the shooting, and she'll make 10 shots in a minute. We do this timing a lot because it's working on a lot of your conditioning, endurance, footwork, dribbling, focus, shooting. So this works on a lot, you know, at one time. And so I really love this drill. And so my lead, go ahead. You have to make 10 shots in a minute. And so as you see, there's no wasted movement. I mean, she's getting the ball, she's setting her feet, she's shooting, she's dribbling out, she turns, 1, 2, pull up. Very good. There's a maximum 2 dribbles with this drill. You can take 3, but more than anything, you're really trying to make the time, really working on shooting the basketball quicker footwork, your speed, being low with the dribble, and also working on ball handling. Good, okay, very good. And as you can see, that's under a minute, and you take a breather, you know, and shoot free throws. Normally I have her shoot free throws, and then we'll go again, and then we start to go out to, you know, long 2-point shots, and then 3-point shots.
And that kind of drill helps you work on not only like your conditioning, but like you have to be focused and your shooting also. So it's a great drill, like Coach said, that works on kind of all around. So
Absolutely.
awesome. So now moving on to drill number 3, which is improving balance and core training. So I'll let you take it away, Coach.
Okay. And I'll get up and I'll have my lead come out again. Especially for a lot of you beginners at home, you know, more advanced. So I'll have my lead balance on 1 foot. I'll start passing her ball at different angles, so she can keep her balance. It's also working on your core. Switch. Okay, same thing. Balance. Good.
Shivam, can you just ask Coach David, like, explain like how long does, I mean, somebody can do this to improve their balance?
Yeah, this is something you should work on every day. Something you should work on every day. You don't have to be in the gym to work on this. You can work on this at home. You can have your parents or one of your siblings, if you have any, you know, pass the basketball to you and balance on 1 foot and keep alternating your feet.
And Coach, can you explain like why core training and balance is so important, not only in basketball, but other sports as well?
In any sport that you choose, the lower part of your body is going to be the strongest part of your body. And then having a strong core and then having strong legs is going to help you with balance. It's going to help you with power and just help you be a complete player. Very
good. And also, so now anything else on the core in training?
Yes, we have a lot on core and training. I'll get Giuseppe and Pat come up, please, and get a basketball. Just go to the free throw line. Good. And so now I'll have them do, just do 3 push-ups without the basketball. So this is really working on your upper body strength. And then now put the ball in your right hand and do 3 push-ups. Left hand, 3 push-ups. Very good. And now working more with your core, I want you to put 2 hands on the basketball and just balance yourself up and keep your body straight. Yeah, and this is another balance and core training workout. And like I said, you can do this at home. Everyone can do this at home. You want to hold it maybe 30 seconds for you beginners and then a minute for you more advanced players. Okay, guys, good. Thank you.
And how many sets do you usually have them do? And they said hold them?
Normally just 5 sets.
Okay.
You know, and normally we do more push-ups and then 5 sets. And so and then another strength drill, we'll have my lead come up with the medicine ball. Malia will come up with the medicine ball, and this is, if you don't have a gym where you can have weights, she's gonna lie down on her back, and she'll have the medicine ball. Some of you don't have a medicine ball, so you can use a basketball, and we'll have Dakshin and Keshav come up with a basketball. And so she has her feet approximately 6 inches, and then she's just pushing the medicine ball up higher. The other two guys are younger. You don't want them lifting heavy weights. And so they're doing the same thing. Dakshin, lower your feet. Good. Okay, good. All right, now sit up, please. Hold your feet up, cross your feet. And then you're just tapping the ball from side to side on the floor, nice and easy. Another core training, strength training, and really working your arms and your core. And this is something that everyone can do. Okay, good, very good. Thank you.
Yeah, like Coach said, this is something that you can do at home or wherever, and you could use a basketball if you don't have the necessary equipment. So now moving on. So improving conditioning. So Coach, do you have some drills that you would like to show us?
Yeah, with conditioning, and I'll get up. So now, these are just short sprint drills that work on not only your conditioning, but your speed and also your quick change of direction. Okay. Okay. So Giuseppe and Patel is going to have for it back. You get back to the next two. Back to the next one. It's a short breather that you get, but then you're constantly sprinting. Okay. Go. We're doing this consistently over and over again. Go. Go. Okay, and as you see, they start to breathe a little bit harder. So, we're getting a really good workout. And now to keep have them be able to change direction quicker and work more on their speed and their quickness, we'll have them go even shorter because we're working on quickness. So you just go to the free throw line and back. Go. 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 Thank you, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Great drill.
I like that. That's great.
That's excellent drill.
They get real intense with it as well.
It does. It's like a kind of competition,
Right.
trying to beat the other guy. So what about outside? Like if you don't have a gym, can people do this outside also?
You can do this in your backyard. You can do this in the driveway. You can do this anywhere. You don't have to be in the gym to do these type of drills.
Mm-hmm. Excellent.
Coach, there's a question from one of the audience, Israel Fernando. He mentions that especially kids under the age of 10, sometimes they play multiple sports. So they have less time for basketball or specific basketball drills. So, is there any advice that you can give in terms of how can they manage basketball sessions and strength and conditioning sessions in terms of if they only practice like 2 or 3 times a week?
Yeah, time management is everything. And so you're playing multiple sports, which we have a couple of players that, play multiple sports. And so you have to manage your time. On certain days, you're going to do basketball. On certain days, you're going to do, football. On certain days, you're going to do soccer. On certain days, you're going to do cricket, and so it's just time management and still making sure that you keep your education at a high level. Excuse me.
And like, how do you manage, like if they play multiple sports, like how do you manage like your drills, like not trying to wear them out?
Well, you want to do these simple drills that strengthen your joints and your tendons, and making sure that your endurance stay up. And so these type of drills that we've shown here are really good. And maybe you don't spend 15 minutes with it; you spend 10 minutes with each drill to get warmed up and making sure your body stays strong.
Yeah, very good. So now, what about off-season training, Coach? What is kind of your philosophy and what is your focus on the off-season with your players?
Oh, wow. Yeah, off-season is actually, and all of the players that play for me, and even me as a professional, the most important part of the season is the off-season. So, with the weight training and with a lot of the conditioning and with a lot of the athletic ability, the speed, the quickness, you really want to work with that in the off-season, perfecting your shot. Getting better at footwork. You really want to do this in the off season. That's where you're at your highest as a player and improving your game. And each year you come back for a new season, you want to be better than the previous season with all of your mechanics.
Yeah, and the most amount of work does occur in the off season. So like, how often do you kind of work with your players in the off season, like particular like days of the week?
We normally go 6 days a week.
Okay,
I give them one day off. These are young kids that are really trying to get to a collegiate level, and some really have the aspirations of playing on a professional level. And so 6 days a week through the off season, and the off season is 4 months. And so that's when we really attack it.
Yeah, that's a time too, right? When they have the time to improve their skills. So now, Coach, I would like you to introduce kind of your players that are here, to kind of give everyone a glimpse about them.
Okay. First, we have, of course, my daughter, Miley Jones.
Hi.
Yeah. And Miley plays professional and play on the women's national team in Vietnam because of the pandemic. She's here, and actually we've used this time to our advantage to gain an edge on everyone else with everything that we train, everything that we've been doing to gain an edge on everyone else. And so, Miley, if you want to say a little bit about yourself, it'd be great.
Hi, India. Good evening. Thank you guys for having me. Honestly, it's been so much fun, and I'm really glad I get to share these strength and conditioning drills with you guys. But for the most thing, just trying to go off of what my dad said, is off-season is so important. And because I don't have any current tournaments, I make sure that I use this time to really perfect my skills. Any improvements that I need to do, I really get in the gym and perfect that. And of course, making sure my shot is more consistent. So making sure that I always work on these strength and conditioning drills and basketball drills to really perfect my game.
Thank you. Okay. Giuseppe, please.
Hi, everyone.
Giuseppe Sessi, he's a sophomore in high school.
Yes, sir.
Plays multiple sports, and so managing his time is very crucial for him because, and not only does he play multiple sports, but he plays at a high level at these multiple sports. So, with the education and with football and with track and field and with basketball, there's almost no time for yourself to relax and do whatever you want to because of the talent that he has. And who knows which direction he'll go in the future, but he's one of the kids that we have that has that opportunity. Okay, anything?
Playing multiple sports, there's a time crunch all the time, but I be sure to, get my basketball drills in when I have football practice or track. I always be sure to get at least like my ball handling because, if I spend too much time away from the game, I kind of get a little rusty and I start to become a little inconsistent. But, if you really want it, it's yours. You just got to work for it. So.
Thank you, Sid.
Thank you.
And when he's slack on the basketball court, then I'm not happy. Okay, next we have Napat Tuputuku. And Pat is currently a junior in high school. Main focus is education and probably will go to a Ivy League school, and actually now plays with the Thai junior national team. So Pat, a little bit about yourself.
So my name is Pat Chipotakun, and I started playing basketball in 5th grade when I went to DJ's camp, and I started improving my skills there. I try to come to the gym every day to work on my shooting and just help other people.
Very good. Thank you, Pat.
Mhm.
And we have Keshav. Vijay Kumar. Yes. Keshav is currently a 6th grader. And so tell a little bit about yourself.
I am Keshav Vijay Kumar. I'm in 6th grade right now. I started playing basketball around 3 years ago when I was in 4th grade. And you know, I come in here to the gym almost every day to work on my game, and you know, there's no stopping myself from basketball.
Thank you. And next we have Dakshin. Okay, Dakshin is currently a 6th grader. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about yourself, the viewers.
Hi, I'm Dakshin. I'm 11 and I'm in 6th grade. Started playing with DJ at around 3rd grade and try to come here every day and no days off.
All right, very good. They know me well.
All right, thank you,
Okay,
Coach.
thank
It's
you.
great to see kind of an inside of your players, and they're very talented and very, have a great work ethic. So it's a great program that
Thank you.
that you have here.
Thank you.
So
These kids work really hard. They work
Yeah.
really hard.
I can
They have a
tell.
lot of demands here on development,
Yeah,
and especially from the grassroots. So there's not a lot of time to goof off. We'll give them that goof off time that they spend at home when they, measure their time out. But when they come here, it's about working and developing and getting better.
and establishing that work ethic and discipline from a young age, I think, is very important.
Absolutely, because then what they really start to understand is no matter what you do in life, you're always going to be shooting for success, and you're going to learn a great work ethic, by being in the basketball program here.
Yes. Yeah. So, Vinod, any last questions about as we're wrapping up the drill portion of the program?
No. I've told a lot of people that we'll anyway going to have the specific Q&A section. So most of the questions, I think I'll direct to Coach David during that time.
Okay, cool. So now moving on, we're going to be introducing a Spurs physician, Dr. Saenz, to the program. So thank you, Coach DJ,
Thank you.
and we'll see you soon. Good morning, Dr. Saenz.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for coming.
Well, thank you for having me.
We're very excited to have you here. Being a Spurs physician for 21 years. So let me just introduce you to the audience. Dr. Saenz is a native of San Antonio, and he's been a Spurs physician for 21 years in his current role. He also served as part of the medical staff in the 1996 Olympic Games, as well as being the team physician for Team USA in the 2012 Olympic Games in London. Dr. Saenz throughout his career was voted one of Texas's top sports medicine doctors multiple times throughout his career. And now he also spends his time educating young medical professionals and giving sports medicine talks all around the country. So Dr. Saenz, welcome to the program.
Thank you. It's a great opportunity. Hello, India.
All right, so now we're going to be doing a round table session. So first, I would like to start out with asking you there's a whole Spurs sports medicine team kind of behind the scenes. So kind of tell us about those people and then their roles in their with the Spurs.
Well, it's interesting because as I started my career 21 years ago, our sports medicine team was comprised of 2 doctors, a sports medicine doctor and an orthopedic surgeon, and 2 athletic trainers. And we were responsible really for the maintenance of the health care and wellness of the players. And it has evolved over the years. And this has really been one of the areas where I've had some really professional growth.
Yeah.
Our team now includes PhDs in sports science, physiotherapists, athletic trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, and a lot of research is being done. Some people's jobs are dedicated entirely to doing research, all with the aim, of course, of keeping players healthy, preventing injury, and optimizing their performance. So everybody used to have their own domain, and now we're all melded together with the common theme of how can we get the most out of our athletes from a performance standpoint.
Exactly.
We'll call in specialists such as sleep specialists, sports psychologists. So the team has really expanded for the overall management and wellness of the athlete.
Well, that's awesome. So now I got to ask you about some common injuries, specifically in basketball, as you know, with the players being bigger and faster, and it's a very high contact sport. So some common injuries in basketball are like, ACL, knees, ankles. So kind of describe those injuries and kind of tell us more about them.
Yeah, still far and away in basketball, the most common injury is to the ankle. And you've got some pretty big feet, out there with these players. And it's not uncommon for one player to step on another player's foot and induce a sprain. Of course, these guys move with such agility and speed that sometimes that induces the injury. So the most common injury in basketball remains the ankle sprain, which are ligament injuries. And they can be quite severe. Sometimes they'll hold an athlete out as long as a month.
Oh, man.
On rare occasions, they'll require surgery. Of course, the dreaded injury in basketball is the anterior cruciate ligament rupture or the ACL injury. And this usually causes an athlete to lose a full season and require surgery. So you do the best you can in prevention of injuries, but with sports comes injuries. And so the training that Coach Jones talked about, the preparation ahead of time, all is very, very important in injury prevention.
Yeah, I know that's very important. So, Vinod, I'll let you take it away. If you have any, go ahead with it. If you have any questions.
Yeah, of course. First of all, thank you very much, Dr. Paul Saenz. I mean, it's so exciting to have you. And I know we spoke briefly yesterday, but I know thank you for coming in bright and early today morning, being on a weekend especially, but thank you for taking out your time. Of course, I mean, I just want to ask you because in the Indian context, I mean, the problem is we play in a lot of outdoor courts, right? Hard surfaces, maybe concrete surfaces or even asphalt surfaces. So of course, I mean, there's a lot of, injuries, especially to the knees and ankles. Is there any thing that we can do to prevent ourselves from getting, injured more often?
Well, that's a really very good point. And that is that training surfaces, or what we refer to as the athletic environment, certainly can affect injuries. So if you're very fortunate and you're on a suspended wood floor like you are here, then it does minimize impact loads. And then moving to an outdoor surface such as concrete or asphalt increases that load. So then overuse injuries seem to predominate. Things like stress fractures, tendonitis, what is commonly referred to in the US here as shin splints, or an athlete gets lower leg pain. Those are common injuries. So prevention in part also has to do with the equipment that you put on your feet. And so a good shoe made for and designed for that particular sport, in this case we're talking basketball, is very important because then that allows for the absorption of the load, the absorption of the stress. So whenever possible, the appropriate equipment on the feet is tantamount to avoiding injury. And then it's really volume as well. So cross training, as again has been mentioned earlier, is very important. It's not all about being always on the basketball court putting up shots. You can find a grass field and you can work on doing core exercises that will translate to performance on the basketball court. So really a variety of cross training is also advocated there.
Thank you so much. I mean, that really helps because in India, I mean, I would say 95% of like the players, right from the grassroots level to, in a lot of cases, even professional level, have to kind of, work on outdoor surfaces because we don't have indoor gyms that are accessible to the normal public. So yeah, that really helps. And another question was, from the audience is, can a meniscus tear be, cured without any surgery?
Well, meniscus tears can be a little bit precarious, and they can though, however, sometimes be managed non-surgically. It's really about having the information regarding the location of the meniscus tear, and that's really what guides us. Of course, the challenge, of course, is do you have the technology? Do you have an MRI available that allows me as a physician, to view that meniscus tear and then make a prognosis or determination of whether we can try to treat this non-surgically? And if you don't have that, and oftentimes even here in the States, we may have individuals that just don't have the ability to get to an MRI. And so you manage that by time and observation and easy rehabilitation exercises, and for at least a period of time, avoidance of twisting, pivoting activities. And you see, just if that meniscus tear, given a few weeks, will start to get better.
Thank you so much. Shivam, go ahead, please.
All right, Dr. Saenz, I got to ask you, as a Spurs fan since a young age, you've been with the Spurs for 21 years. You worked with some great players, Duncan, Ginobili, Parker, and Robinson, and among others. So do you have a Spurs story that you want to tell us?
Being with the team 21 years, there's actually a lot of stories, and you get a tremendous opportunity to network with the players, and you travel with them during playoff games. You're with them in the locker room. Tim Duncan, for example, always wanted a joke before a playoff game. So we'd be asking our friends for good jokes and all of that. But my very first year with the team, we were in the playoffs, and my partner, Dr. Schmidt, was evaluating Avery Johnson.
Yeah.
And he had him on the table, and I did not know that Tim Duncan was right over my shoulder, looking over my shoulder. That wouldn't be hard to look over my shoulder. And I'm watching Dr. Schmidt evaluate Avery Johnson's knee. And it's pregame. I'm wearing a suit, and I step back in a pair of dress shoes, and Tim Duncan is barefooted, and I step right on his foot right before a playoff game. And, he hopped around a little bit, and I thought, wow, this is going to be a pretty short career as a Spurs team doctor, if I broke his toe. But I think Timmy bailed me out, and he went for 20 and 20 that night, and so I got to stay on, and it turned out to be a pretty good thing. Another evening, we were in the gym in New Orleans, and we were getting ready for a playoff game. And Manu Ginobili was stretching, and he was using a sports cord.
Yeah.
And he was just doing it nonchalantly, and the handle just flipped back off his foot and hit him on his nail, on his thumb, and it fractured his nail. And it was quite painful. I mean, very, very painful.
Yeah.
It took us 7 to beat New Orleans, and we lost that game that night, and Manu was quite hampered. And I'd never really had to deal with this kind of injury. It was on his shooting hand, and it was really quite painful. And so this is when possibly I came up with one of my best thoughts in sports medicine. I said, who can we get to help with this injury? And of course, here in the United States, women like their nails to look very pretty, and they often go and see nail technicians. And I thought, that's who we need. We need my wife's nail technician. And so I contacted that individual, and sure enough, she was able to fabricate a nail to go over his fractured nail. And it looked monstrous. It wasn't anything to be proud of, but it got the job done. And during the playoff game, we were playing the Lakers, and Manu was at half court with Kobe Bryant. And Kobe looked down and saw this thing that we built up over his nail and said, "Oh my God, what did you do?" And anyway, it turned out that we won that series, and Manu did quite well. So it was some quick thinking on my part.
Oh man, it all worked out at the end, but that's hilarious.
Yeah.
Manu Ginobili is a legend. So now moving on, I got to ask you about the diagnosis approach. So when the player has an injury, no matter what it is, what is kind of that diagnosis approach that you look at in healing that injury?
Well, again, I mentioned really the depth of our sports medicine team. The athletic trainers on the team are with the team on a day-to-day basis. Whenever an athlete is in the gym, an athletic trainer is in the gym. So they serve really as the eyes and ears of, and first point of contact for an injured athlete, the eyes and ears of the team physician. So we're in daily contact with our athletic trainers. So the athletic trainer typically will do an initial assessment. And if it's a relatively minor injury, they really just confer with us about it and their plan of care. And the team may be on the road or what have you. And so that takes place. But obviously, more significant injuries come into the office and they're evaluated by us. Invariably, they may involve taking x-rays if it's an injured bone or joint. And of course, with professional athletes, the resources are pretty limitless. And so MRI and studies like that, whatever it takes really to make the most accurate diagnosis. And I think in reality that professional athletes are treated really a step above the general public.
Yeah.
As I'm seeing patients in my office, I really don't think an MRI is necessary on that moment.
Yeah.
It won't be obtained. But in the case of professional athletes, it almost always is obtained.
Yeah. So now, Vinod, I'll let you ask a question if you.
Yeah, I think most people on the panel are asking, like, how do you prevent, an ACL injury? Because as we were discussing, it's kind of the most common injuries in basketball.
Well, there was a time when it was believed that ACL injuries were not preventable. And if they were going to happen, they were going to happen. And they can't all be prevented, but you saw those drills that were being demonstrated out there, particularly balance drills, particularly drills that will keep the entire lower chain and core strong, optimally fit. And really, that is our best method of prevention. And particularly as we deal with the female athlete, that's really important because musculoskeletally and biomechanically, men and women work a little differently. Boys and girls work a little differently at the hips and knees. And so balance drills are essential. The development of the gluteal muscles, for example, for stabilization is just as important as trying to stabilize and strengthen the quads and hamstrings. So there are jump drills, for example, some of those were demonstrated. And that's really right now the best method of ACL prevention is learning good fundamental jumping and landing mechanics. Again, particularly for the female athlete involved in jumping and cutting sports. It's really, really come a long way. And overall, the reduction of ACL injuries has been reduced with these advanced training methods.
Thank you. And also another, especially, is the Patellar tendonitis or jumper's knee, as they call it. Is it manageable, or is it something that you can prevent from happening?
Sure, that can be a really chronic injury and a nagging injury, as you mentioned, jumper's knee, alluding to either quadriceps tendonitis above the kneecap or patellar tendonitis below the kneecap. But it all involves what we call the extensor mechanism that involves the quads. So again, a balance between quadriceps on the front and hamstring musculature on the back. There's a ratio that we shoot for there. Then there's the strengthening of the glutes, etc. And then, but everything begins at the feet. So the first thing that we do is evaluate an athlete's feet and ankle mechanics, foot and ankle mechanics. So if they're flat-footed or they're high arched, it's all about the absorption of load. So overuse injuries like jumper's knee are related to cumulative load. And so we need to distribute that load as best we can with the use of appropriate footwear and then balancing musculature, improving flexibility and strength from the foot up. And that's our best method of prevention. Athletes who begin to have some element of symptoms, begin to develop some achiness around their kneecap, pain when they go up or down stairs. First method of prevention is they should work on stretching those quads and icing after workouts.
Yeah. Well, that's very interesting. So, Dr. Saenz, you also work with a lot of grassroots athletes. So, kind of ask you, in all sports, what kind of this grassroots rehab process kind of look like?
Well, as we alluded to, the resources available to professional athletes is limitless.
Yeah.
But if you're playing any sport in the surrounding areas of San Antonio, and I'm sure in areas of India where you don't have all those resources, then the things are really focused on prevention.
Mhm.
So adequate strengthening, adequate nutrition, adequate hydration, working the core, all those things are fundamentally important for the prevention of injury. So it's best to hit it on the front end. But then if an injury does occur, sometimes rest is part of the equation.
Mhm.
And that doesn't mean to an athlete that you simply stay at home and do nothing. It means that you find something that you can participate in. Can you swim? Can
Yeah.
you ride a bike? Can you mainly work on lifting upper body while you give your lower body a bit of a rest?
Yeah.
So reduction of load is super important. Don't underestimate the value of pre-warm-ups.
Mhm.
So we saw Miley working out and doing jump rope before. So that's a way of pre-stimulating the muscles early to prepare them for a more demanding activity later when the ball goes up in the air, when you start to play. And then don't underestimate the aspect of icing.
Mhm.
When I walk into our locker room after our game, the first thing is the trainers are busy wrapping ankles and knees automatically,
Yeah.
every single player. And so that can't be underestimated either. So
Yeah.
those are the simple grassroots things that can be done. There's stretchy elastic bands and things like that
Yeah.
are low maintenance, low cost. You don't have to have a weight room. In this pandemic, my workouts have been mostly with stretch bands. So because I can't get to my gym.
Yeah. Awesome. So now I
Thank
gotta
you.
ask you. So a big part of being an athlete is like diet and hydration and rest. So kind of explain kind of the fundamentals of that and why those elements are so important.
Well, Vinod mentioned, for example, the work outdoors. And if you have to be cognizant of the ambient temperatures, and we're supposed to have a 105-degree day here in San Antonio today. And so working out at the appropriate time of the day. So in my drive in here this morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, I saw people getting their workouts in early in the morning. That makes much more sense than going out there at 3 o'clock in the afternoon today.
What's the hottest?
And so think about just being smart.
Yeah.
Take ample supplies of water with you. Water is still the number one way to keep the body cool. And so adequate amounts of hydration are essential. When we talk about diet for exercises, athletes, because they burn so many calories, have to be in tune to providing their bodies the fuel. Of course, complex carbohydrates are excellent sources, fruits and vegetables, but an athlete also needs protein, and protein is really emphasized post-workout. So athletes will load on carbohydrates pre-event or pre-competition. Pastas, whole grain breads, cereals, fruits and vegetables make excellent pre-game meals. And post-game, when they've had a lot of muscle breakdown, which is a natural course of exercise, then that's where proteins become essential. Supplementation with protein shakes is great, but this is when chicken, fish, and even limited amounts of beef are very essential. So, athletes are like regular people too, and they like delving away. They like to get to fast food once in a while, especially some of our younger athletes. So we really have to emphasize to them that they really eat to compete. That's a slogan I like to use, so that they get smarter about their dietary selections. There's websites out there. The Gatorade Sports Science Institute has websites that allow an athlete to do some really good meal planning.
Yeah. And also, like you said, young athletes, they kind of coming from college, specifically, they have those college habits. Now being a pro, like you said, you got to eat to compete and really be able to fuel your body. So I think that's very important. And like you said, hydration also, you got to be adequately hydrated if you want your body to perform at the highest level.
And one thing I have to add to that is the value of rest.
Yeah.
I mean, really, especially our collegiate athletes, they can be under a lot of strain because they're trying to mix in their academics
Mhm.
with their training. And that can be real challenging, even for our high school athletes, of course. You know, they
Yeah.
have their state championship game, but they also have their calculus exam on the same day. And it's very necessary then for our athletes to make sure that they're getting adequate rest
Yeah.
in the form of sleep. And that's what we mean by that.
Yeah.
So very, very important as well for injury prevention and overall well-being.
I think that's very important. Vinod, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, especially, I mean, when we were playing, in our younger days, and we used to, our coaches always used to tell us, drink less water during practice. I don't know why, because of course, at that time, I mean, Indian coaches would always like, hey, just take a sip of water, or, I mean, don't drink too much water. Or is there like, I mean, a specific quantity of water or something? I know it depends on, individual body type in terms of how much you perspire, what's the temperature, if it's humid, all those kind of things. But I mean, what would your suggestion be in terms of in a normal hot 105-degree day, drink water like every 15 minutes or 20 minutes, or what your suggestion would be?
Well, really, you've given the pretty sound advice right there, but it begins with prehydration. So athletes should begin drinking on the way to practice, or on the way to their event, or on the way to their period of exercise. So prehydration, start with a full tank. And drinking breaks every 20 to 30 minutes are really felt to be the best way to go, with cool fluids that are rapidly absorbed. Between 8 and 12 ounces at a time seems to be the optimal amount. So really good coaching does include adequate breaks for hydration. And then a really, really good method of doing this for prolonged periods of exercise is that you know your weight before you begin your period of exercise, and then you also take your weight following the period of exercise. That allows you to replace that fluid loss on a 1-to-1 ratio. So for every pound loss, 16 ounces of fluid should be replaced. And now, finally, if I may be so scientific about this, one thing that is a good way to monitor hydration is actually the color of urination. Okay, so an athlete wants to be able to urinate clear, and the more concentrated or darker the urine, it's an indication then that they are underhydrated, and the urine becomes very concentrated. So really, that is a good scientific marker. We have urine color charts in our college athletic training rooms so that athletes know to look for that specifically.
Yeah, that's a great insight there. Thank you so much. And so, I mean, I know, a lot of players nowadays wear a lot of compression, uniforms, like underneath their, jerseys and stuff, in their arms and their legs and stuff. Does that really help, or is it just for style?
I probably have to answer that a little bit of both. If an athlete has had some degree of injury, let's say we're treating tendonitis of the lower leg, or what is commonly known as shin splints, then I think there is really a value to putting compression around that musculature, and as a means of reducing edema. Athletes have come to like wearing compression sleeves on their shooting arm. And I think that's not necessarily for show, but it has become something that they feel perhaps reminds them to maintain a shooting form. It's really hard to say. There are some injuries, certainly if I'm treating a strained quadricep or a strained hamstring, we oftentimes will use a compression type thing, but you see athletes coming out in full length tights, and the thought process, at least, is that compressive load returns blood quickly back to the heart to be reoxygenated and back out to our exercising muscles. So that's the theory.
Okay. I mean, yeah, because I know, a lot of youngsters, especially watching on TV, they watch all these NBA stars wearing, pretty much like an Eskimo suit, and you always feel like, hey, why are they wearing, all these kind of compression suits? So, but this gives a little bit of insight in terms of, why they do it. So so at least we can probably inspire some of these players to say, hey, this is just not for style.
Well, and one final thought on that is, especially when exercising outdoors, your body, those pores need to be open so that you can evaporate and dissipate the heat that your body is generating. So I certainly would not recommend that everybody sleeves up before they go play outdoors.
Thank you so much. And just a very, coming back to your experience with the Spurs, what would you say has been the most interesting injury, or in terms of the most difficult injury that you had to face as a Spurs physician?
Well, being the sports medicine specialist on the team, that means that not only do I get to take care of the bone and joint problems, the strains and sprains, but I'm also involved in really the day-to-day care of the athlete. And so when I see them when they're sick, and I guess I will tell you this, and it's harsh reality, but this pandemic has really caused us to be so prepared, and we had to develop the testing strategies for our players. And like other NBA teams, we had players get ill as well. And so managing a player with a disease process that is largely unknown on how to manage it, there is no vaccination. This has been a real challenge. And all the team physicians in the NBA were involved with the strategies that are being employed in Orlando in what's referred to as the bubble, with all the testing that is being done.
Yeah.
This has largely been one of the biggest challenges of my career.
Yeah.
There was an athlete that we had once upon a time, and then his jersey hangs up in the rafters, Sean Elliott. Maybe a few of you still remember Sean Elliott. Sean Elliott had advanced kidney disease and required a transplant after his playing days were over. In fact, we'd won the '99 championship against the Knicks, and 2 weeks after that championship, he had a kidney transplant. 2 weeks after the championship. His numbers from a kidney function standpoint were just really off the wall. And I was frankly scared that something tragic could happen to him right down the stretch as we were going through the playoffs. And he persevered, and he kept me a little nervous, but I was doing my very best to manage a very delicate situation at that time, along with his kidney specialist who were guiding me through this. But yeah, those have been some times, but the times with this team and 5 NBA championships and players like David Robinson and Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker, and so many other great players that I have formed so many friendships with. We still send Christmas cards to each other, and if I happen to see them at an All-Star game or something like that, it's hugs and embraces and handshakes and old stories. So it's been a tremendous ride, and I have to pinch myself every day to believe that I actually had a career like I've had so far.
Yeah, and you had to deal with, you've seen kind of everything in your career, like you said, with the coronavirus, but then like all the different injuries. So I got to ask you, so, the bubble just started, but then with the Spurs, when they were allowed to come back and practice at the facility, how was that kind of process like of easing the players back in? Because they must have had maybe some minor injuries, because some of them kind of had a chance to work out and some of them didn't, during this pandemic. So kind of how was that process like?
Well, the players are really, they have to make the same adjustments that all of us have had to make.
Yeah.
So we ask them as well to follow guidelines of social distancing and to wear their mask when they're not around us. When they're in the gym, they're in really actually one of the safest environments because we've made it that way for them. We have delegated times when players can be in, so they don't congregate as a team when they're back here in San Antonio during their workouts. They're coming in for individual workouts or treatments. or workouts with their strength and conditioning coaches or the physiotherapists. All of that is almost by appointment. And yet the gym is sterilized on a daily basis after every single player is treated. Of course, the training room is re-sterilized. And so those are the measures that we're taking place to allow our athletes to come back in. But really, the very same things that we ask our young athletes here, and the protocols that are in place are done to now an exponential level for these high-level athletes.
Yeah. And a lot of athletes like to get taped, before games. So kind of, does that really help? And like kind of explain that process, because I've always, as a fan, you always seen like the behind the scenes of them getting taped, especially during the Jordan documentary you saw. So I was just kind of wondering about that, Dr. Saenz.
Well, I think that athletes for years and years have relied on athletic taping, especially in prevention of ankle injuries. That's the most frequent joint that is taped pregame. There have been studies that have compared actually taping compared to bracing. So lace-up ankle braces are out there, and I really advocate that all the young athletes begin to use lace-up ankle braces. Professional athletes may say that they don't feel as comfortable, but the reality about taping an ankle with athletic tape is that within about 15 minutes of play, it's loosened. Okay.
Yeah.
And the same can be said with an ankle brace, but it sure is easier to reach over and relace it up than it is to go back in the locker room and be retaped. So there, again, it might be just personal preference that a lot of athletes would choose athletic taping as opposed to bracing, but bracing is a good means of prevention, and I really believe young athletes should try that as a means of prevention of ankle sprains. Again, the most common injury in basketball.
Oh, it definitely is. That's what injury you see the most when you watch, either all levels, grassroots, college, and NBA.
Absolutely.
So, Vinod,
I know, just to, a little bit move away from the monotony of injury and stuff, I'm going to share your video about that Manu Ginobili story. So, it's just so interesting. So just give me a few minutes. One second.
We were sitting in the New Orleans training room before a playoff game, and one of our star players, everybody knows Manu Ginobili, was preparing for a game, and he was using a sports cord, and the handle at the end of his foot slipped loose, came and hit him right in his thumb, and just about took his thumbnail off. So we're in the playoffs, and we were figuring, how are we going to take care of this thing? This nail is really just, it's fractured, it's cracked, and not his finger, but the nail itself. And I think I had one of my just smartest moments in sports medicine as a sports doctor on who could help us take care of that nail. And I thought, I think we need my wife's nail tech, And so what we did is we put a fake nail over his nail, and it worked. It worked. It turned out to be a natural splint, and allowed him to play with very little discomfort. So that was probably my shining moment. Yeah, Vinod, I didn't know you were going to throw that up there. I wouldn't have bored everybody. And I would have worn a different shirt as well. I mean, I have a multitude of Spurs shirts, as you can imagine. The best thing is at the beginning of every season, it sort of feels like Christmas because we get a big bag of gear. And so every year I go through shirts and shirts. I've got, probably 25 different Spurs shirts hanging. And I wore the same one I wore in that video. How'd that turn out?
But sometimes, you just have your favorites, right? So, so just shows that, because, you will have, so many suits hanging in your closet, but every time you open it, you would want to pick that special one all the time.
I guess that's what happened.
But nevertheless, just another audience question. Of course, since we are talking about the Spurs, you've pretty much been, throughout when Greg Popovich has been the coach. I think Greg Popovich has been the coach for maybe 23 years now, and you've been with the Spurs for like almost 21 years. So you're pretty much, coincidentally been there with the Spurs at the same time. So how has it been working with somebody like Greg Popovich? Because, for us, when he comes to the press conferences, he seems like a person like a no-nonsense guy. I mean, he would answer in like syllables. So, I would like to know your experience.
Coach Popovich, first of all, probably wouldn't want me to say anything about him. So I'm going to say all the good stuff. And no, actually, Coach Popovich, I've been so fortunate to have been around him. And one of the greatest things that I can recall in my career is being in the locker room with the players when we've had some really, really important games. Walking out for an NBA championship game, being in the playoffs, there just really is a very, very unique environment. And Coach Pop's ability to connect with players on a basketball level, but also on a personal level, has really been his forte and his strength. I mean, he just really can get to a player by challenging them, sometimes by challenging them physically, but also by challenging them mentally. Can you give me your very best tonight? And of course, it's legendary that he was never ever afraid to get up in any player's face, so to speak.
Star player, anybody, yeah.
Star player like Tim Duncan, of course, and I've seen him get in players' faces, and unfortunately, I've seen him get in my face because coaches can get a little frustrated when players don't seem to be getting better.
Yeah.
And the team doctor is not without the ability to get scalded either. But then on the other hand, he's been gracious enough to take us into his home, and we've broke bread together and had many a meal together. And he's really a very, very gracious individual away from the basketball court. When he's on the basketball court, he can be quite funny as well. He makes the players laugh, but he is also very interested in each of the players as an individual, and he really tries to connect with them on that level.
Yeah, I feel like he has a deep bond with each one of his players. You can tell, from current into past players, they talk about how much they love him, how great of a father figure he is. He's always someone that can talk to not only about basketball, but about personal. So
I think many a player has said that, expressed those sentiments. And I just think that he can be really a no-nonsense guy in the locker room, but when you get to know him on a personal level, he asks about your family, and he wants to know that about you and your own well-being.
Yeah, and you hear about all the team dinners and team events that he loves to do. It's like one big family.
The team dinners are legitimary. They're wonderful. He knows his food, and of course we know he knows his wine. And so I've been with many of those team dinners, and the food is pretty good.
I'm sure. All right. Anything else to know on this section for the roundtable?
No, I think we're good. I think we can probably have some audience questions for DJ as well as for Dr. Saenz. So let's give them an opportunity to ask those questions as well.
All right. We're going to bring back in Coach DJ and Miley for the Q&A section.
Hey everybody, we're back.
Hi, Coach DJ. Welcome back. Hope you had a nice break.
Great. It was great, but it's better to be here.
Of course. So one of our audience wanted to know, is there any specific drills that you can do to improve your thigh muscles?
Thigh muscles. I think with the stretching, the bands, the quick footwork with the ladder, or if you don't have a ladder, if you have the lines at home, just increasing those, the speed, the quickness with the short movements versus the long movements.
And would you recommend like those kind of things be worked out more during the off season rather than during the in season? Because of course the in season is more dynamic.
Right. The off season is where you're going to improve everything. If you don't use that off season time to improve every aspect of your game, your muscles, then trying to do it during the course of the season is really going to throw off your time and your momentum. And when you have team concepts, things you need to be working on to make the team better, I don't think it's the right way to train. So the off season is where you need to put in all of your work. And that's the most important part of the season is the off season.
Yeah, for sure.
Sure. Just to get a sense, Miley, I know you worked with the D1, college, and now you're of course playing for Vietnam. But how's the D1 experience in terms of strength and conditioning? Because a lot of colleges spend a lot of money in terms of getting the players absolutely conditioned for the entire season. So just if you can relate your experience, that'd be very nice.
Right. I mean, Youngstown in Chicago, strength and conditioning was very important. You know, preseason, we're constantly on the track, we're in the weight room. And then when we're in season, that's where we focus more on our basketball skill set, plays, you know, teamwork, everything. And so I remember my freshman year, we would spend a good 30 minutes on just stretching, you know, static stretching, dynamic stretching to make sure that our muscles are really warmed up to really prevent from, you know, small injuries, you know, like Dr. Saenz said, you know, shin splints, tendonitis, you know, I think the biggest one was muscle cramps. But, you know, making sure we drink water before and after practice. And of course, during our stretching, you know, that was really important. And then when we get in season, you know, we're probably cutting down stretching to maybe 20 minutes, you know, still, you know, really going in depth of stretching, but then we're more focused on, you know, our basketball teamwork and everything.
Yeah. So I got to ask, I have a question for Dr. Saenz. So I got to ask you kind of the difference between like drinks like Gatorade that have a lot of electrolytes versus kind of like water.
Well, the thought process there is that for short periods of exercise, water is the ideal replacement drink. So if you're going to be exercising an hour or less, water is adequate. For more prolonged exercise, let's just say distance runners, for example, you know, the more volume of sweat there is, then we know that sweat contains electrolytes. So there can be electrolyte loss. So at that point, an electrolyte drink is advocated. So for longer periods of exercise. But let's face it, it also comes down to taste.
Mm-hmm.
We want our athletes to hydrate.
Yeah.
And so there's absolutely no problem with them hydrating if they prefer something that's got a little flavor to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's fine. That's absolutely fine for an athlete to do their hydration with Gatorade if they prefer. And there's athletes during the course of an NBA basketball game that drink water throughout, and there's others that may drink water and Gatorade.
Yeah.
And some of them like a mixture, they like it diluted. So again, as long as the fluids are really going in, but water's an excellent source. Just the more extended time, you may want to add sugar and electrolytes.
Yeah.
Thank you. What kind of, exercises or rehabilitation process can you recommend for a back injury?
Oh, I'm telling you, back injuries can be devastating to an athlete. And anybody who's ever had back pain knows that. So really you want to, again, injuries, really the best way to approach them is prevention. And so developing a strong core, those are, when we say core, most people think only abs, and we don't mean just the abdominal muscles, but also the back muscles, the pelvic muscles, the gluteal muscles, and even the quads and hamstrings. So really everything from the top of the kneecap to the level of the chest, front and back, that's your core. So strengthening the core, again, is the best means of prevention. Once you've had a back injury, it really takes being on the floor and doing simple exercises initially, things like pulling one single knee to chest, double knees to chest, knees side to side, and then eventually progressing to building bridges, lifting the bottom up off the floor, doing simple things that we call pelvic tilts. Of course, everything's on the internet these days, and you can find low back flexibility exercises on the internet. But eventually, You go back to a little more advanced exercises. You start doing crunches. You start doing planks. You start doing some localized and specific back exercises there. So that's the best way to approach a back injury.
And we have some of our, of course, sponsors, especially Sporting Ethos India. They're a high-performance sports science and medicine center located in India. They would like to ask a question. While a lot of players talk about improving jump height and power output, could you re-emphasize and elaborate the importance of focusing on the building blocks towards achieving these goals? I think that would be more related to Coach David Jones.
Yes,
how they can increase their vertical jump kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's a lot of things. You want to make sure that you get a good warm up. You want to make sure you stretch. And like I said, when you saw my lead using the jump rope, that's also good. Running stairs, running hills, doing a lot of jumps. And we have here box jumps, for kids. And that really increased their vertical jump and their power. Having a strong core is actually where it's going to start.
If I could add to that, just simply, strength training, and I'm sure Miley can talk about that. Once you reach a higher level of play, strength training really becomes essential to the athlete. And so athletes are in the gym, as Coach mentioned, during the off season, and then they are doing things like doing squats and deadlifts. And this is just plain old hard work in the gym, lifting weights, in preparation not only for performance, but injury prevention. Again, the stronger the muscles, the more load they can withstand. And athletes, particularly basketball players, run the fine line of not wanting to be bulky. They want to be flexible and they want to be lithe. And that makes perfect sense. So a lot of functional lifting becomes more important than, say, the football lineman who does a lot of real super heavy lifting to get bulk and mass. An athlete like a basketball player walks that fine line of wanting to be ultimately as strong as they can, but also as fluid and mobile as they can be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, both of you. Thank you very much. We have another question from Raul Hirani, who is the founder and the SNC coach at SpeedX Strength. To what do you attribute the recent rise in ACL injuries? What protocol do you follow in order to get an athlete back to sport post an ACL tear?
Well, there's really a lot of emphasis on jump mechanics. So our strength and conditioning coaches really are pretty high level coaches. And so they study an athlete. There's a lot of videography that goes into this. So we're watching athletes land. And again, not every single athlete has the resources of the professional athlete, but there are actually testing labs where you can put LED monitors and do motion analysis, and we can watch and see if there's a dominant side compared to the other. And most of us do have a dominant side compared to the other, but the method is to try and achieve balance between one side and the other. And so that's really the focus of ACL prevention is jump mechanics, landing mechanics. And again, at the higher levels, you see force plate analysis being done. That's the high-tech sports science stuff that brings that information to the table, where you get baselines. And then post-injury, what you strive for is going back and achieving those baselines that were established before injury. So it's a long road back from an ACL injury. The surgery is I guess I don't want to call it the easy part of it, but it's the athlete that does the work post surgery that really gets them back in the best frame to return to their highest level of performance once again.
Thank you. We have one audience who would like to ask the question live. His name is James Joel. He's from our partner, The Gym in Mumbai. I'm going to ask him to directly ask the question. Joel, please go ahead. I have given you access to, yeah.
First of all, Dr. Paul, thank you so much. I have like 5 pages of notes here from all that you said throughout the call. So it's been really, really inspiring. And all, thank you for all the knowledge bombs that you've been dropping on us. My question to you is, we've been hearing the term load management a lot. And I'm sure before it became a popular term, you guys were already toying with the idea or playing around with load management. But you guys have it down to an exact science. Y'all put out the numbers. X player has 12 minutes of play. Another player has 22 minutes of play. How do you land up on that exact number, or is there a slight art form to it as well? If you could just elaborate on probably the history of load management and the current way how you go about it.
About 5 years ago, maybe just a few more than that, we began to incorporate sports scientists as part of our sports medicine team. And really what we were looking for from those is trying to get a true precise metric that could be utilized so that we could understand just what type of load our athlete was absorbing. There's just the concept of internal and external loads. External loads are the loads applied to an athlete when they run and they jump and they lift weights. And then the internal load is how is that reflected on the body? And that simple parameters, things like heart rate, body fat, those are manifestations of that. But it has become so much more sophisticated than that, that is an hour discussion unto itself, to be honest with you. But our sports scientists are typically PhD level individuals, and they put together on the basis of game by game, 5-game spans, 15-game spans, how does this player to relate to other players that play the same position, because we know that smalls and bigs have different metrics. How do we relate to the rest of the league in the number of minutes played? And when we break down an interval, we break down intervals when a player runs between 7 and 10 miles an hour, or when they go between 10 and 14 miles an hour. There's high-speed motion cameras in every NBA gym. And so you're able to get some metrics. There's times when we're in the gym by ourselves where we'll have our players wear accelerometers, and we're able to determine again just their loads. We use force plates in the strength and conditioning area, and that's what determines load. Load management then becomes the stratification of where is this player fit, and to use a real simple way of thinking, is this player in the green for go? They're showing no signs of fatigue. They're showing maximum performance and absorption of their load. Are they in the yellow zone where you begin to have to watch certain aspects that they may be climbing close to an area that they're exceeding their ability to absorb that load? Or are they in the red? And if they're in the red, then that means they've exceeded that capacity. And that's a simplification of it, but that's really the information then that we want to pass back to the coaches, so that we could come to you, Coach David, and say, listen, this player has played a lot of minutes in the last few games, played more minutes because of an injury to another player. And so all of a sudden, this player who was normally playing 8 minutes a game is getting 28 minutes a game. And we don't want to take them from 8 to 28 in a single day. But if an injury occurred last night and we've got a back-to-back, that may happen. And so that guy's got to be ready. So load management is also those players that don't play. They play 8 minutes in a game. They're in the gym the next day getting their work. And the guy that did play 38 minutes that game, he's getting some recovery time. So that's load management in a nutshell. But again, we could spend a lot of time talking about load management, but it's giving players time to recover. And recover's become the new word, and it's not rest anymore, it's recovery.
So Coach David, I would like to ask you is there a prescribed strength and conditioning time limit or format for, different age groups, like, if you're working with like a 7 to 10-year-old, he's got to do in so many minutes. 10 to 13-year-old, he's got to do so many minutes. Do you prescribe something like a formula for that?
Absolutely, because you cannot work an 8, like Spencer, a 9-year-old, the same way you would work a 12, 13, or 14-year-old, or even a 16-year-old. An 11-year-old, you don't want to work like you would a 16, 17-year-old. So there are different time limits that you give the younger player versus the older player. The older they get, the more their body can withstand. And so then you want to push a little bit more. But for the younger kids, you really don't want to overdo it.
Thank you. Shivam, you have any questions from your end?
Yes. So thank you for all your answers so far. So I got another question for Dr. Saenz. So when a player is coming back, from injury after like the rehab process, how specifically do you know when he's ready? Like you point to a game, like, okay, he can maybe try to give it a go. Is it that he has to work out before and have no symptoms or any pain?
Well, you're exactly right. And one of the very first things that we do is we pull out the calendar.
Yeah.
And we, you can give projections on this ankle injury is likely to take 2 to 4 weeks. It seems like everything in medicine is 2 to 4 weeks or 6 to 8 weeks. It seems like in the sports medicine world. But the reality of it is this: an athlete who's injured goes into treatment.
Yeah.
Diagnostics first, then treatment. And that treatment is usually relegated by our athletic trainers and our physiotherapists. And so once an athlete can perform what we need them to perform in the training room, we then do a handoff to our strength and conditioning coaches. And then our strength and conditioning coaches prepare them through that process of running and jumping and weight training. And again, what's valuable here is having these pre-established baselines. So what an athlete has been able to lift, what their court speed has been in doing an end-to-end run, those kind of things. So we go back to achieving baseline, or very close to baseline. And then we hand them back to Coach Jones. And we say to Coach Jones, now, that he's not played for the last 4 to 6 weeks.
Yeah.
And we believe that we got him out of the rehabilitation phase. We got him out of the strength and conditioning phase. And he's already done sport-specific activities. But now we're giving him back to the coach saying, now you can begin to play him. Now we use some of those load management strategies. And coach is in on the decision-making here. And he knows, okay, I'm going to play him for 5 minutes in the first quarter, and I'm going to play him and we let the coach, and we let him use the strategy of when he wants to use them.
Yeah.
But we're all working as a team. And so now the sports medicine team gives the information to the coaching staff, and then the coaching staff participates in that athlete's progression back to more and more minutes and hopefully back to full performance.
Right. Thank you. And coach, so when you having a player coming back from injury, how do you kind of manage your load? Like you don't want to start them out coming out fast and playing a lot of minutes. So how does that process look like to determine how many minutes he plays?
And a lot of it has to do with rhythm. They come back, they need a rhythm. Their biological, time clock is been offset. And so to get that back, to where it needs to be, there needs to be some practice time and, load management, and then have that player work their way up. Every player is different. Some, get back faster, their rhythm than others. And so you always have to play it by ear and, by time and by performance with the development.
Mm-hmm. Very good. So Vinod?
Yeah, this is one question that I'm going to ask, all three of you. Now, Miley, please answer the question in the perspective of a player, Coach Jones in the perspective of coach, and of course, Dr. Paul Saenz as somebody, who works in terms of trying to get back to a player. So if you do get injured and, so what is your thought process in terms of trying to get back to play? And I just like to get the perspective of a coach as well as from a sports science specialist, how do you combine and try to come with the best outcome for that particular team or player?
Yeah, so for me, it's when I'm coming back from an injury and I was out for 1 month. then I really work on my rehab. And I make sure that, I'm with the doctor, I'm with the trainer, and I'm making sure that, I come, an hour or two before practice to make sure, okay, I'm hydrated. Okay, now I have to do my rehab. And so now when, I'm almost cleared, then I really work on some 2-on-2, some 3-on-3, and then some 5-on-5 half court, because that's slowly working my rhythm back to full court 5-on-5. If I just go right into 5-on-5 full court, right into team play, and I'm only going for 3 minutes here and then 2 minutes here, I'm not really fully getting back my rhythm. So I make sure, I pull, 2 or, 6 girls aside. Okay, let's do some 3-on-3, because then I have to get slowly back into my playing rhythm. And then after the game is over, I evaluate myself. Okay, this was a little painful, or my cuts aren't usually where they should be. And then I go to the doctor. Okay, this is what I think I should work on a little bit more. And then of course I get his input. Okay, when I made this move, this was a little painful, do I need to take a step back? Or, as weeks go on and I'm into 4-on-4 half court or 4-on-4 full court, nice and easy, then I feel almost no pain. And so that's when I know I can take it to a full 5-on-5. But it's, slowly working my way back to my rhythm, the small 2-on-2, the 3-on-3, and then evaluating myself after each game.
Sure. So Coach David, I mean, how do you handle like pressure from a player? Because a lot of players are sometimes just, inching to get back on the court, right? Because they just want to play. But you just have to like keep them at bay and, evaluate them and, say, you're not ready. You need to do this. You need to do that, because it can get sometimes, a big point of friction.
Yeah. And I understand that, and really trying to explain it to the players a lot of times can be difficult. When a player does get injured, okay, right away we have to readjust, our rotation. And then when the player that's injured, not only does he wants to get back on the court, but he wants to pick up where he left off. And it's not going to work that way. And trying to get especially these young kids to understand that is always the biggest challenge. And so making that team adjustment, and then when the player comes back, it's playing a little bit here, playing a little bit there, see how you fit back into the team rotation and what's best for the team. I know you know and you feel what's best for you, but what's actually best for the team is the route and the decision that we have to make. And yes, we're going to get that player back to top form, but it does take time, and we want the players to understand, think of the team before you think of yourself, and that way we're going to be successful. And so we really continue to push on that. I have some players that, go out with an injury and come back, and right when they step on the court, they're trying so hard to get back where they left off, and they're actually making more mistakes than they would, and sometimes even injuring something else because they want it so bad. And so it's my responsibility to make sure I look out for their health and their best interests and kind of settle things down a little bit more.
And Dr. Paul, I mean, it's extremely difficult when you're working with such a professional team which maintains such high standards. I mean, of course, the recent example has been Kawhi Leonard. There was a lot of, controversies going back there. But I don't want to get into specifics of what happened. But it's just like, how do you prepare that player mentally? Because something like an ACL or something, it just runs in your mind, right? For a player, he may be fully recovered, but it just plays at the back of his mind in terms of whether I'm ready, whether I can put that pressure. So what kind of mental conditioning can you support?
I think that's really very cogent points that you make. And every athlete is frustrated by their injury. There's no question about that. That an athlete identifies themselves to certain standards of performance. And so getting them back at a high level of confidence, I think, begins with being able to educate them about their injury and to really point out to them and demonstrate to them, particularly when you have some baselines, look, you're back lifting what you were before. Your speed has returned, or it's just about back where it was before injury. And yet there's still psychologically could be something in that athlete's mind that is, it's very simply the fear of re-injury. And that is an obstacle that I think coaches play a significant role in allowing athletes to get their confidence back slowly, measuring their minutes and managing their loads. So I think in the context of that, some athletes have really struggled with that. And I'm not beyond asking a sports psychologist at times to get involved in the care of our athletes who have had pretty devastating injuries. An Achilles tendon rupture, again, that's one of those that an athlete just, they're so fearful of that happening again. And so sometimes it's another professional that can help that athlete get over that hump. It's not always going to be the team doctor that's going to be able to do that on their own, but athletes are pretty special individuals in that they're very determined, they're very goal oriented, and many an athlete will take an injury as another challenge and say, I'm going to prove to myself, and that's the first person they need to prove it to. I'm going to prove to myself that I can do this. And then feedback from the athlete. Athletes want to play. And so the best trust that can be developed between a team physician and the athlete is really tantamount to success. So as Maylee said, so they can come back and say, I don't feel right when I cut to my right. And that gives us information then that the strength coaches, that the physical therapists, that everybody involved can work on to get that athlete back out feeling confident, performing well.
Yeah, I got a question for Coach. So when the athlete comes back from an injury, like you said, they may want to rush back because if they lose, they want to get their starting spot back. But how do you allow them to play freely and not kind of think about that injury? Because if you think about injuries, then more injuries will happen. So how do you let them just take their mind off of it and just play the game and do their normal thing without thinking about getting re-injured?
I manage their time and see what's and in their performance. You can kind of see what's going on in their mind and how they want to play, and if what they were able to do before that they can't do now, and certain cuts or certain moves that they like to make. You'll know if you really have the heart to protect that player. You'll really know where they are, and helping them get through it is you just manage their time and you shorten their performance on the court, because if you give them too many minutes, you have a greater chance of something happening.
Yeah, no, that's true. Well, thank you for your answer.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Time-wise, I mean, we can answer a few more questions. Is that okay? Or, how does it go? So I think we'll just take probably 2 or 3 more questions and then, wrap this session.
Sure. And I would like to ask if anyone can ask questions to one of the kids. If anyone have a question for one of the kids, and I'd like to hear their perspective.
Sure. No problem. So we have Anjani who wants to ask a question. So I'm going to allow her. Anjani, please go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, please go ahead. I mean, you can ask
Hello,
a question
everyone.
too. Yeah.
Hello, everyone. My name is Samar Pratap. I'm from India. Actually, I want to ask our body wants the protein that we get muscles for our body.
So are you asking whether athletes should go on a protein-rich diet in order to build muscles?
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, I don't know. I mean, Dr. Saenz, I think you would be in a better position. Does that really help, or a balanced diet is more important?
Well, a balanced diet is really important. Again, athletes need to have the fuel to engage in exercise, and that's where carbohydrates are ready source of fuel. But naturally, weight training, running, jumping activities, there is muscle breakdown. That's a natural physiologic thing for athletes, even at the highest level, will have muscle breakdown. And so that's where protein replenishment is necessary. But protein comes from foods as well. So eating fish and chicken and eating nice quantities of meats is all acceptable ways of replenishing protein. A lot of our young athletes probably enjoy a protein shake from time to time, and that's absolutely acceptable. It's a good way of replenishing those muscle groups that have been depleted by protein to some degree. And then there's protein bars, etc. So it is absolutely a normal component and should be a vital component of every athlete's diet.
Sure. Okay, one more question from Ibrahim Bakshi. He is, I think, 13 years old.
Yeah, actually, I can't believe it. I'm really excited, and thank you all the coaches for reaching out to India. I mean, like, I thank you all for reaching out to India and giving us this precious information. So I actually wanted to ask that which shoes will be appropriate to, I mean, no one wants a ACL tear. So which shoes will be appropriate to avoid such bad injuries? High tops, mid tops, or low tops? Like, do you prefer high tops? Do you recommend them?
I can take that. I think that there was, as Coach Jones and I will know, that if you didn't walk out on the court with high tops, that you weren't wearing the right shoes. But that's not what professional athletes are doing anymore. And we want athletes to feel comfortable in their shoe wear. Obviously, we want those shoes to be in good repair. You just can't wear the same pair of shoes for 2 years and expect that they're going to perform for you. I really think, and maybe Miley wants to answer that, you probably see people wearing high tops, low tops, and it just really, we don't really put much emphasis on that as team doctors anymore. We let the athletes wear kind of shoe that they feel comfortable in.
And each player, all the feet are different. And so for the most part, for all the club members, players that I have, we make sure we strengthen our joints, because some of them, they want to play in low tops. They feel, more free in low tops, and some of them have to have high tops. So what we do here, we make sure everyone strengthen their joints with their ankles and their knees, just to be, fit when they go out and play. So just make sure you have on basketball shoes. There's some kids that will show up in running shoes because their basketball shoes hurt their feet, but you can't get on the court like that because you're definitely on your way for an injury.
So just to really add on to that, I really like to play in low tops. And I think what's so good about basketball shoe science that's, really being trendy right now is low tops. They provide a ankle cushion right below your ankle. And I think that's been really good. I think Kobe Bryant's shoe was really one of the first low tops to do that. And that's really been awesome because I know low tops before, there was no ankle cushion before. So, there's basketball players that get nervous. They're like, oh, I'm wearing low tops, ankle injuries. But, like Dr. Saenz said, and, Coach DJ said, make sure you have that, strength and conditioning, and make sure you're strengthening your joints, because that's really going to help. And I know a lot of kids that I run into, players too, they're really high tops only. But I think what's a good basketball shoe science that's out now is the low tops. They have that ankle cushion under. So it kind of pulls away from, being nervous of a ankle injury. But for me, I feel a low top, basketball shoe, I have a little bit more flexibility. My cuts are a little bit better. When I wear high tops, I feel like I could play in any shoe, but high tops, I feel like, oh, my ankle, it's just so tight. But, you definitely can mentally, you already feel that ankle support. But just for me as a player, as a guard, I really like to play low tops.
Thank you. I would like to ask the players behind the question. I know, in India, we're still going through our lockdown. I mean, still things haven't really opened up. I know, most of the things have opened up in the US, but how did you all keep yourself active? How did you guys keep yourself, fit, or what did you guys do at home so that if you can say some of the things. Maybe the players here and the coaches here can also recommend some of those things for the players here.
Giuseppe.
I'll take that. I was fortunate enough to get a weight set for Christmas this year. And so over quarantine, I actually gained 20 pounds of good weight, which is, really good for me because I'm also playing football. And there was a field not too far from my house, and I was able to go there and do some of these agility drills and get a lot quicker and faster over this break, I guess. And also I was coming off an injury, so that was pretty good for me too as an athlete.
And with that, we have a lot of players that still want to come in the gym and work. And so we sanitize the gym twice a day, in the mornings and in the evenings. And every player that comes in have to wash their hands, then have to get hand sanitizer when they enter the gym and when they leave. And so we make sure we take the necessary precautions to make sure we stay as healthy as we can, and letting the kids know the more we continue when we go out to wear our masks, when we keep our hands sanitized and keep the gym sanitized, that gives us the opportunity to be able to come in the gym and work on their game more often than if we test positive, then we have to, quarantine until, we're better. And so everyone here has been doing a really good job of not only taking care of themselves, but help taking care of others. So I've been very fortunate to have these kids and their parents help support us in that area.
Thank you guys for being here and showing us those drills that really help get a visual of how the drills are conducted. It's so much easier to understand. But just before we go, one a few last questions is Dr. Saenz. As I mentioned, we are just at the end of the lockdown and people are just trying to get back to normalcy. And so most of them are, probably going to hit practice again. Do you have any recommendation in terms of what they should be doing so that they don't stress themselves or injure themselves, and how slowly that they need to progress?
I think it's really just being, using a little bit of common sense, in that when you really were removed from your environment, you couldn't train at your schools or you couldn't train at your local gym, and you had to improvise. It's realistic that there was a drop off potentially in strength and speed. And so when athletes come back into that environment, I think good coaches have realized that. And so the progression has been there, that athletes start at a slightly lower level. So I think it's really, don't expect too much of yourself too soon. And then frankly, a lot of athletes got out of shape. They simply got out of shape, and their dietary habits changed. They weren't exercising to the same degree where they could get away with things the way they could because they were burning calories. So it's back to adherence to a good diet, and then regular forms of cardiovascular exercise is really important. It all starts with cardiovascular endurance, and then you move on to strengthening and flexibility, and then you start hitting your sports performance. And so it's really just being prudent and realizing that this is something that none of us have ever dealt with before. And so it's just been adjustments for everybody at every level.
Yeah, thank you. And well, let me see. One last question of the day, and it's from Israel Fernando. He asks, can weight additions to the body help improve isolation moves under pressure? A big challenge during the COVID situation has been to work moves under defensive pressure. Can it be tackled by adding weight to the body, like wearing a bag with some weight? If not, is there any other solution to tackle this situation?
Who wants to answer that?
I think the player should answer that one.
So I think when we're in this situation with the pandemic, and you want to work on your isolation moves. Definitely one thing I think works the best is when you saw the kids when they did ladder, because, you know, you don't really have access to your gym. You know, maybe you don't have access to, you know, a hoop, you know, but you're still working on your lateral movement. And that's really what isolation moves are, your lateral movement. And so when you saw Giuseppe, when you saw Pat, you saw Keshav and Dakshin, they're doing their ladder and they're keeping up that foot speed. And so that really helps with just maintaining that rhythm. And so when you do finally get a basketball in your hand, and let's say you still don't have a hoop because of the pandemic, you still have that foot speed and you can still work on your ball handling, moving side to side and working on that isolation move. But I think if you were to add weight, I wouldn't say it's not going to slow you down. Of course, you're going to get stronger, but you do want to maintain that speed and quickness, you know, because that's really what an isolation move is, that speed and quickness, beating one defender and then, you know, making another move to beat another defender, going in for a layup or possibly, you know, making an assist play. So, you know, I definitely think keeping up that speed with the ladder and even the jump rope, but the jump rope is more of a full body workout, but keeping that foot speed is really going to help.
Thank you. I mean, that really helps. I hope everybody takes inputs from Coach David Jones, Coach Dr. Paul Saenz, and of course, Miley. Thanks for your perspective as a player. And I hope you get to go to Vietnam pretty soon. But anyway, it was a very interesting session, and you know, at least I learned a lot, and I hope the coaches, the players, everybody got to you know, ask their questions, get their questions resolved. Shivam, anything to add from your side? If not, then we can ask everyone to just you know, say their thank yous, and we can end the session.
No, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody, you know, Miley, Coach Jones, Dr. Saenz, and all the players out there for both showing us the drills about strength and conditioning, and then Dr. Saenz explaining about injury prevention, sports science. I think it was very helpful. Definitely learned a lot, and a lot of great takeaways. So thank you to everybody.
Enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, thank you all. And guys, thank you for getting up early in the morning, being here and sharing your expertise with other people in other countries. And I really appreciate you guys being here. I promise not to work you as hard next training session.
Thank you. Oh, I'm sorry.
No. I was just gonna say, please carry on.
Thank you guys so much for, you know, listening in and watching us, and thank you guys for having us. You know, I really enjoyed, you know, the little drills that we could share, and I know these players really enjoyed being here and sharing their expertise with you. So thank you guys for having us.
Thank you so much, everybody. And if you all require certificates for this session, please email us at info@ekalavyas.com. That is info@ekalavyas.com. And we'll take care of that. And of course, if you have any specific questions, please email it to us as well, and we'll try and get them answered as well. So good luck, everybody. Thank you once again for being there bright and early on a weekend. Dr. Saenz, it was extremely exciting to talk to you, and hope to have another session pretty soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. And before we leave, Vinod, just quickly give a shout out to the Patel and Kumar show every Thursday now with the NBA restart. Tune in every Thursday, 7 p.m. India time for the best basketball coverage.
All right.
Yeah, thank you. But sorry, Shivam, I forgot to you know, have that video queued up. So we won't. I mean, I don't think we can have the video queued up, but I think that was our plan to do it. But once again, thank you. Yes, tune in to the Patel and Kumar NBA talk show, and you know, so all the NBA news. Don't watch any of the other news. Just watch Patel and Kumar NBA talk show. Thank you. Thank you.
I'll see you Thursday, Vinod.
See you Thursday. Bye.